there. Welcome to this introduction to the energy system. You're watching this video because you are likely attending one of my upcoming events. And this is really the groundwork and the foundation to a lot of my work, is understanding what are the energetic root causes of the stress response. Our goal is for us to be in this kind of state of alignment, this easy flow. We're not putting ourselves in stressful circumstances, and we're just kind of having fun with life. That is the ultimate alignment that we're all searching for. And to gain that sense of alignment, we have to work through the energy system. So the energy system starts with meridians or nadis. Those are the channels or the pathways of energy. And energy is simply information. That's all that energy is. And so these energy centers are also part of the energy system. If you're familiar with the chakras, we have 7 major chakras. They start with the root. So what a chakra is a spinning wheel of energy, information, again, and located in various places of the body. They correlate with the glands of our body, and they also correlate with nerve endings or nerve bunches and branches and bundles along the spinal cord. Now, how I got to be a nurse for 13 years before I found out that this energy system existed is beyond me, but let's just keep going with that. So, again, these are their spinning wheels of vortexes of energy. And really what their purpose is they take in information, okay, and they process it. They kind of run it through a filter, if you will. And then some of that energy, a lot of that energy, gets stored in our physical body. Carolyn Myss, who's one of my favorite authors, talks about your biography becomes your biology. And how that happens is through the processing of energy through those chakras. So they take in information, they process it, and then they assimilate it. Each major chakra has a purpose, it has a function, and it also carries a state of woundedness with us. And woundedness is really, really important when we talk about alignment and when we look at the stress response. So the first is the root chakra. This is where we feel grounded and secure in our authentic self. This is where we carry the woundedness of any time we didn't feel safe and secure in our body. So people who have experienced floods or natural disasters, anybody who's experienced physical trauma, are going to have wounds of this first chakra. Second chakra is the sacral chakra. It's located below the belly button. This is our emotional processing center. It's also tied to the reproductive organs of both men and women. And the woundedness that hangs out in this chakra is woundedness related to codependency. So my behavior elicits a response from someone else, and I feel responsible for their emotions. So people who have struggled with codependency or people pleasing usually have some congestion or some tightness in that lower part of their abdomen. Now this can result in something as simple as or some very complicated things in our physical body, like infertility and bladder issues, kidney issues, things like that. The solar plexus is the third power center or chakra. It is tied to our pancreas. This is our personal power or personal will center. So the woundedness that comes from this, there are times where we felt low self-esteem, where we felt like we didn't have a choice, and that we were out of control. The heart chakra is the one in the center of the chest. This is probably my favorite chakra of all. It is where the magic of the first 3 mixes with the top 3. And this is really how we live our life out loud, right? When we live from our heart center, when we live intentionally. But the wounds of the heart are probably the hardest. These are the ones around rejection, feeling isolated, feeling not connected to loved ones, and grief. And so we know that, and it's also tied to the thymus gland. So I don't know if you've ever been at a funeral and you've cried really, really hard, and then 2 or 3 days later you get really sick with a cold or flu. It's because that grief in your heart chakra puts pressure on your immune system, and it doesn't function to its optimal ability, and that's why we get run down, we get sick. The throat chakra, which is located here above the larynx or in conjunction with the larynx, is our expression center. It's where we speak our truth out of. I do not find that it's there is a correlation that women primarily have a lot of thyroid dysfunction, right? Women by nature don't speak up. We don't speak our truth because we've been taught and received information over a long time through our chakra system that it's not safe to speak up for ourselves. We might be called names and all kinds of things. The brow chakra is located here. It is the third eye, if you will. It is where our wisdom and our insight and our intuition lives. This is a really, really important one for women. And when we aren't following our intuition and we aren't trusting our insight, things like migraines can happen. The woundedness that we keep here is when we believed something to be true and we had an illusion that it wasn't true. So like, I think about Santa Claus here. Like the moment when we realize that Santa Claus was not real is like the woundedness that we keep here in the third eye. Yeah, maybe it's not a big deal when you're a kid, but moving through life, it makes you kind of question what's real and what's not real. And that can become a really big problem for us. And it certainly can, in situations, can become projected in a situation that can be very not helpful and cause us a lot of stress. The last is the crown chakra. Okay, I lied. This is my favorite one. This is where we connect. This is where we connect to that higher self, that best self, where we connect to the power that is much greater than us. And where we feel this sense of belonging to something bigger than ourselves. Where we, the woundedness that we can carry here are when we feel cut off from that power source, when we feel like, why are we being punished for something? That is major, major woundedness up there in the crown, and that can cause a variety of different physical conditions. So back to this alignment idea. Alignment is when all of these power centers are open. We're aware, the woundedness never leaves the chakras, right? But we're aware of it. We know that all the things that have ever happened to us, all the ages that we've ever been, are really a part of who we are. Where we need to shift is allowing us to just be who we are and stop putting ourselves in situations where we get triggered, where these chakras go down or become compromised because of the situation and the circumstances that we're putting ourselves in. Let me give you an example. For me, because of my personality type, I tend, and I think because I'm a nurse, I tend to think of worst case scenario. And that's very fear driven, okay? For me, my personal story is I was in 7 school systems by the time I graduated from high school, so I moved around a lot. My grounding chakra has never really been super functional. It's functional, but it's not been very strong. And so when I experience fear, I very quickly, this chakra goes down. And what happens is I have a physical response in my body. I get very shaky in the knees. I feel very unsteady. I feel ungrounded. I feel like my body and my head aren't necessarily connected. So when we talk about being in alignment, I know about that about myself. And so what I do, a personal boundary, or what I like to call energetic boundaries, is that I don't subject myself to media that instills fear in me. Now, certainly, when we are going through a time where we need to be informed, I put certain boundaries in place where maybe I'll have the TV on in another room and I'll be working, and when a press conference comes on and I need to know, I'll go and listen to it. But I'm not immersing myself in situations that are going to stimulate fear. So we're all looking for this state of being in the flow, feeling in control of ourselves, and showing up for ourselves and the people that we love as the best possible version, an authentic version of ourselves. So here's what happens with woundedness. And this is what keeps us from showing up as our best self. So when these chakras are open and we're happy, the energetic field or the biofield is this space that we take up. It's the lens in which we view the outside world from. It extends about as far as our arms do. And it is created by the momentum of the chakras. So when I'm listening to the media and I'm getting fear, or if fear is coming up for me, that chakra is down, like that one's not working. And now that fear, that energy of fear is hanging out here, okay? And let's say at the same time I'm participating in something that is striking up fear. I'm also feeling like, oh my gosh, I am in this crazy world all by myself. Nobody loves me. All of my rejection and my isolation issues are popping up now too. So I got that hanging out here. And energy isn't good or bad, it just is. So I got that energy hanging out. And I feel really scared to talk about my feelings. So that one's out. And that energy's hanging out, that fear of speaking up for myself, or telling my husband, hey, mate, I don't need to be watching the news right now. And so what happens is we find ourselves in these situations and these little trigger points hit us. And then we have a physical stress response. So in order to really be able to stay in this space of alignment, what we need to do is, one, we need to acknowledge the woundedness that we carry with us. Acknowledge the woundedness in each of those chakras. We need to create more space. So expand this space in which we live. And how do we do that? We do that through self-care. Self-care is the things that we have to do every day so that we can show up as our best selves. Some days we fall flat, but at least we're making an effort. And then we learn about, well, what did I need in that situation to show up better? Okay? So we need to acknowledge the woundedness. We need to create more space in the energetic field through self-care. And then the healing process is really about letting go of this wounded energy so that we don't have all these triggers hanging out in our energy field. So that when something does come at us through the energy boundary, which is really just outside of this energetic field, we can go, whoop, true or not true for me? Am I going to let that into my space or am I not going to? So for me, back to that media example, I know that about myself. And when I'm in certain states and certain conditions, I refuse to watch things that are going to elicit that fear. So I don't turn it on. That is my own energy boundary because I know that about myself. So in my workshops, we go into this in a much greater detail. I provide exercises and experiences to help you understand how this woundedness kind of shows up for you by helping you cultivate more self-awareness. I help you learn about where are these triggers and how do you shift so that you don't have a stress response triggered. What boundaries do you need to put in place so that you can consistently show up as your best, most authentic self? And then my most favorite topic is what self-care strategies, I like to call them self-hacks, do you need to put in place to create more space so that you aren't consistently having a triggered stress response? So if you'd like more information on the workshops that I provide, I invite you to go over to my website at yourhigherpathhealing.com/events and check it out.